No.
Did you catch Alyssa Stoddard? She was right next to Kristen Cabot wearing that knowing smirk. What most people don't realize is this whole public cheating reveal was a revenge plan staged by her and Andy Byron's wife Megan.
What could it be? A mystery for the ages!
Andy Byron's affair wasn't an accident, it was revenge. The girl's expression gave it all away. The key person in all of this was the girl next to them, smiling happily. She's Andy Byron's employee and someone who's been fed up with him for a long time.
And her response to that was, hey! No, so
there are worse things we could be doing.
They thought no one was watching. At a sold-out Coldplay concert, two top executives from a billion-dollar tech firm, Andy Byron, the charismatic CEO, and Kristen Cabot, the company's head of HR, sat nestled in a private VIP section, lit softly by stadium lights. The music was loud, the mood was electric, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed like a perfect night, until the kiss cam turned their way. Andy flinched, Kristen gasped, the camera panned, and in just a split second of awkward, very public hesitation, something much bigger began to unravel.
Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
But what millions didn't see at first, what they completely missed, was the woman seated just out of frame, smirking like she just won the lottery in front of a global audience. Her name, Alyssa Stoddard, a junior HR assistant most people at the company barely noticed.
That moment, Alyssa seated beside Kristen smiled, not from awkwardness or shock, but from knowing she'd won.
But that laugh told an entirely different story. You see, this wasn't a random concert moment, it was a detonation, and according to multiple insiders, it was the final move in a plan Alyssa had been perfecting for years, one that would bring down not just her boss, but the woman who, just months earlier, had taken the promotion Alyssa believed was rightfully hers.
Here's the truth. Days earlier, astronomy CEO Andy Byron had quietly promoted his lover Kristen to head of HR. He thought no one would catch on, but someone was already setting him up.
In the hours that followed the viral video, emails were wiped, travel logs scrutinized, board meetings called in secret. By the end of the week, two careers were in freefall. One resignation came quietly, the other, not so much. But the real twist? The person who pulled the trigger never raised her voice. She didn't even post. She just smiled. And if what's now surfacing is true, that smile was only the beginning. It was supposed to be a feel-good moment, the kind that plays on stadium jumbotrons to spark applause and warm laughs. But instead of a cheesy kiss and a light chuckle, the Coldplay kiss cam delivered a full-blown corporate crisis in 15 silent seconds. The footage shows Andy Byron, CEO of Astronomer, a billion-dollar AI powerhouse, seated comfortably beside Kristen Cabot, his company's recently promoted head of HR. The moment the camera lands on them, the shift is instant. Andy's shoulders stiffen, his eyes dart toward the screen. Kristen half laughs, half freezes, visibly jolted like a student caught texting in class. But the body language didn't just scream discomfort, it screamed guilt. The awkward reaction, which might have been dismissed as shyness under other circumstances, instead felt loaded with tension. Internet sleuths noticed quickly. These weren't two people unprepared for attention. These were two people terrified of being seen together.
I don't know if he was happily married, she was happily, I don't know any of that. But I do know that if you don't want people to know what you're doing, don't take them to concerts.
Yeah. 60,000 people.
Still, the crowd kept cheering. The music played on, but just off to the side, nearly cropped out of frame, sat a woman who didn't panic. She didn't cover her face or shrink back. Instead, she smiled, a sharp, knowing smile, like someone who just witnessed a long-awaited screw-up unfold exactly on cue. That woman was Alyssa Stoddard, and insiders say she wasn't there by accident. The concert footage hit social media within hours. What started as a funny clip of two people ducking the kiss cam quickly morphed into Reddit threads, Twitter theories, and frame-by-frame breakdowns. Suddenly, users started asking questions. Why did two executives from the same company look so guilty together? Why did Kristen lie about working remotely that weekend? And who was the woman sitting just to her left, laughing at the perfect moment? By the time the video hit 50 million views, Astronomer's PR inbox was on fire. But the real inferno, that was coming from inside the company. Because for Alyssa, this wasn't entertainment. It was a trigger, one she'd been waiting to pull.
There was a carefully thought-out plan behind it. Megan Kerrigan's goal wasn't just to expose the affair. She wanted to completely destroy her husband's life and reputation, making him lose everything in front of the the public.
Before the concert, before the kiss cam, and long before the viral explosion, Alyssa Stoddard was barely a name on the payroll. Officially, she was listed as a junior HR assistant at Astronomer, a tech firm known more for AI innovation than office gossip. She handled onboarding packets, processed PTO requests, and sat in back row seats during town halls, invisible to most, but quietly observing everything. What no one realized at the time was just how much access Alyssa really had. She saw who got hired, who got fired, who mysteriously skipped the interview process altogether. She read internal memos long before they hit inboxes and managed the executive travel calendar with surgical precision. For nearly 5 years, she watched the company's elite rise and fall, and in many cases, rise for the wrong reasons. But everything shifted 2 years ago when Kristen Cabot, a mid-level HR generalist with half Alyssa's certifications, suddenly leapfrogged to Senior Director of People Operations, a position Alyssa herself had quietly applied for. To everyone else, it was just another internal shakeup. To Alyssa, it was a theft. She didn't yell, she didn't quit. She started listening more carefully. And when rumors began swirling about Kristen's unusually close relationship with CEO Andy Byron, Alyssa didn't gossip, she logged it. Emails, travel bookings, after-hours office meetings that didn't align with calendar entries, a shared ride back from a Napa retreat that somehow disappeared from the itinerary. One by one, the red flags piled up. Kristen was suddenly attending executive strategy sessions she wasn't previously part of. She was CC'd on board-level correspondence. And when a suspicious reimbursement form for a wine bar dinner slid across Alyssa's desk, labeled Team Morale Activity, but attended by only Kristen and Andy, the switch flipped. This wasn't a merit-based promotion. This was something else entirely. A relationship, a cover-up, and Alyssa, the quiet one in the corner, had just become a walking time bomb armed with details no one else noticed or cared to confront. The deeper Alyssa dug, the more obvious it became.
Now Andy's facing divorce and a hefty payout. Sometimes the harshest revenge isn't loud and chaotic, but quiet and unnoticed.
Kristen's rise wasn't just unearned, it was orchestrated. What began as a suspicion quickly turned into a disturbing pattern. Every promotion at Astronomer followed a rigid multi-tier approval process involving 3 executive signatures, performance scorecards, and HR compliance checks. Yet Kristen's leap to director bypassed all of it. According to 2 insiders familiar with the internal workflow, the final approval on her promotion came from a single name, Andy Byron, and that's when the puzzle pieces started snapping into place. Alyssa combed through archived emails and found instances where Kristen's meetings overlapped with Andy's private calendar, blocks of time labeled off-site strategy, yet scheduled at boutique hotels, wineries, and resorts far from the company's headquarters. She wasn't guessing anymore, she was tracking. One receipt in particular sent chills down her spine. A dinner at a Michelin-starred wine bar in Sonoma, filed under executive networking, but there were only 2 names on the billing, Kristen and Andy. The timing, just 10 days before Kristen's promotion paperwork was filed. Even more concerning, Alyssa discovered that Kristen's travel budget had quietly ballooned over 6 months, far outpacing any of her department peers. These weren't just overnight conferences or seminars, they were extended stays, first-class flights, last-minute upgrades to 5-star hotels, all logged under ambiguous project names like team enrichment and leadership development. But there was no team, no training, no development, just Kristen, just Andy, alone. And the longer Alyssa watched, the more blatant the favoritism became.
Forget the Epstein files. I want to see the text messages of that astronomer CEO that got caught cheating at the Coldplay concert.
Kristen was being looped into financial review meetings, despite having no accounting background. She was sitting in on vendor contract calls. She even had access to internal audit reports, which should have been confidential even to senior HR. Every move Kristen made looked less like a role expansion and more like a strategic power grab, one that was being shielded, even enabled, by the company's most powerful figure. Alyssa didn't need hard proof of an affair. She had something far more dangerous, a trail of paperwork that pointed to systemic abuse of power. And with every misfiled expense, every skipped protocol, every inconsistency Kristen left behind, Alyssa collected receipts, not just to remember, but to expose. It didn't happen by accident. Alyssa being seated just a few chairs away from Kristen Cabot at a sold-out Coldplay concert wasn't coincidence, it was choreography. While the rest of the world marveled at the awkwardness of 2 corporate elites dodging a kiss cam, Alyssa sat stone still, smiling like someone who had just set the final domino in motion. According to multiple insiders, Alyssa had known for weeks that Kristen and Andy were attending the concert together. She had access to the travel logs. She saw Kristen's bogus remote work entry on the internal calendar. She noted the overlapping flights, and she paid attention when Kristen accidentally let slip her seat location during a team lunch, not thinking anyone would connect the dots. But Alyssa did. She pulled up the venue's seating map, scanned the central aisles where the kiss cam typically hovered, and upgraded her own ticket to a seat in the same row, same section, just far enough to be out of frame, but close enough to watch everything unfold.
It If you're gonna have an affair, why would you bring her to a concert in public where everybody can see you? What if you even ran into someone you knew? Who cares about the Jumbotron? What if you ran into someone you knew? Huh?
One Reddit sleuth later suggested that Alyssa even paid for premium seating specifically for optimal visibility. And if the angle of the now infamous footage is any clue, they might be right. The moment the camera landed on Kristen and Andy, time froze. Kristen looked like she'd seen a ghost. Andy glanced around like someone had just shouted, "Fire." But Alyssa, she didn't flinch. She laughed. A soft, almost imperceptible chuckle, caught barely at the edge of the frame, but one that would later send the internet spiraling. That smile was no accident. And it wasn't just for the camera. According to one employee who spoke anonymously, Alyssa had waited years for that moment, not the concert, the collapse. What happened next wasn't just a scandal, it was strategy. Because the moment the music faded and the Jumbotron cut to black, Alyssa didn't stick around to dance or grab a drink. She left quietly, calmly, and within hours, she'd already clipped the video from the venue's live stream, anonymized the file, and sent it off. Not from work servers, not from her phone, but from a burner account on public Wi-Fi. She knew exactly what she had captured, and she knew exactly what to do with it.
She got your ass.
When the kiss cam clip first hit social media, it looked like nothing more than a cringeworthy blink and you miss it moment, the kind that racks up likes and reposts before vanishing into the algorithm. But this one didn't vanish, it metastasized. Within 24 hours, the video had been downloaded, reshared, and memeified across Reddit, Twitter, TikTok, and even closed Slack channels at rival tech companies. What made it go nuclear wasn't just the awkwardness, it was the reaction. People noticed how fast Andy looked away, how Kristen panicked like a deer in headlights, how a woman off to the left, Alyssa, smiled like she'd just witnessed karma punch through years of frustration. Users started connecting dots. Subreddits popped up, dissecting frames, comparing LinkedIn profiles, exposing conference overlaps and corporate retreats. Someone even dug up a deleted Instagram photo showing Kristen and Andy in Napa during the same leadership offsite that never made it to the company calendar. But while the internet laughed, Astronomer went into lockdown. PR flagged the video immediately. Legal began scrubbing email chains. Internal systems flagged unauthorized travel claims. And according to multiple sources, a confidential HR investigation was launched, led by none other than Alyssa. That was the twist. The same woman who sat quietly collecting evidence, the same woman everyone ignored, was now the one asking the questions.
You don't know who else is in this giant stadium of people. If you're doing that and you don't want people to know, what the hell? I mean, it's just too dumb. You got inadvertently what you might have been looking for.
Kristen, unaware of how much ground Alyssa had already covered, reportedly walked into her scheduled post-concert debrief, expecting a soft HR chat. Instead, she found Alyssa seated across the table, a stack of policy binders open, and a compliance rep already in the room. Within 48 hours of the clip hitting 50 million views, Kristen was placed on immediate administrative leave. Andy, meanwhile, tried to spin the narrative, claiming the footage was taken out of context. But insiders say the board wasn't buying it. Behind closed doors, investors were already demanding accountability, not because of a kiss cam, but because the footage proves something far worse, that Kristen had lied about her whereabouts on company documentation, and that Andy had knowingly enabled her. One source close to the board put it bluntly: it wasn't the affair, it was the cover-up. The moment Kristen falsified her travel status, it became a legal liability, and that's when things truly spiraled. A routine HR investigation became a full-blown executive audit, with Alyssa at the helm. The moment Kristen Cabot was escorted out of her office with a bland-sounding administrative leave pending review, the atmosphere at Astronomer changed. Whispers replaced chatter, eyeballs avoided contact. People who once casually CC'd Kristen on every thread suddenly triple-checked recipient lists. But the strangest shift, it was who replaced her. Internally, it was Alyssa who stepped in to oversee the damage control. The same junior assistant once ignored in elevators was now looping in senior legal counsel and interviewing executive staff behind closed doors.
Alyssa played the role of Kristen's close friend, but secretly teamed up with Megan. The kiss cam, that was their public takedown staged. After the show, Megan deleted their photos from socials and dropped the Byron name.
Sources say her demeanor didn't change. No gloating, no smugness, just clinical precision. She'd waited for this. Not because she wanted power, but because she wanted truth. The kind that never makes it into HR memos or all-hands updates. Within days, Alyssa had compiled enough internal anomalies to demand deeper audits. Expense reports marked with vague labels like retreat enrichment tied to luxury dinners, flights rerouted to places with no scheduled events, calendar logs that contradicted receipts, and most damningly, Kristen Kristen's own promotion documentation, missing the required committee review, bypassing merit-based benchmarks, and pushed through with only one approving signature, Andy Byron. It wasn't a clerical error, it was a calculated bypass of protocol. And while Kristen's sudden leave sent shockwaves through the HR department, it was Andy's unraveling that rattled the entire firm. Insiders say he tried to initiate back-channel conversations with board members to contextualize the video and downplay the appearance of impropriety, but no one was buying it, especially not after anonymous Glassdoor reviews began surfacing, detailing years of favoritism, abuse of executive discretion, and unethical expense padding. One review, dated 2 days after the video, simply read, "Promotion at astronomer equals dinner reservations plus proximity to power." That quote alone sparked a frenzy. The board, now facing mounting media pressure, held an emergency vote. Andy's resignation was framed as mutual, but behind the scenes, sources confirm he was given an ultimatum: step down or face a formal misconduct inquiry. He chose silence. His LinkedIn bio vanished. Company-issued devices were collected. And just like that, the man once hailed as a visionary was erased. But Alyssa wasn't done. She didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. She simply returned to her temporary desk stacked with audit folders and resumed combing through policy violations, this time with full access. She wasn't cleaning up a mess. She was restructuring the system from inside. The video may have gone viral in 15 seconds, but the fallout lasted weeks.
The bigger thing people aren't talking about is how a CEO of a company should never be dating the head of HR. They are literally there to be on the affair. These are the people that's supposed to implement company policy. There's a power dynamic. There's a question of like
sometimes
ethics.
you can't help who you want to get on. Oh no! Sometimes you just can't.
Kristen Cabot, once the sleek, fast-climbing HR star, disappeared completely. Neighbors reported seeing movers outside her house just 3 days after the clip broke 50 million views. No police, no lawyers, just quiet boxes and a man they later identified as her husband, loading them one by one into a waiting truck. No statements, no confrontation, just a silent separation. Sources close to the situation confirm Kristen's husband filed for divorce the same week, citing irreconcilable differences and requesting full custody of their 2 children. Friends say he felt blindsided, humiliated by the footage, and even more devastated by the media frenzy that followed. Kristen, meanwhile, was reportedly removed from all internal systems within 72 hours and stripped of access to company platforms, expense accounts, and even her astronomer email. Her personal social media accounts, once carefully curated with inspirational leadership quotes and conference photos, were wiped clean. But while Kristen vanished, Andy Byron faced a different kind of reckoning. Industry insiders say he went from headlining major AI conferences to being blacklisted in less than a week. Speaking engagements were quietly canceled. Investors pulled out of upcoming funding rounds. At least one startup accelerator removed him from their advisory board without comment. One tech journalist described it as reputation collapse in real time. What made it worse, insiders claim, is that Andy still didn't believe Alyssa was behind it. In one internal conversation, he reportedly asked IT to investigate whether company systems had been breached, suspecting a whistleblower from the outside. But the truth was more surgical. The email that first circulated the footage came from a burner account created at a Cambridge cafe, just blocks from Alyssa's apartment. A move so clean, not even the company's cybersecurity team could trace it back with certainty. And then came the final blow, an anonymous envelope sent to a mid-tier tech outlet containing a complete dossier, calendar logs, expense receipts, travel overlaps, and even screenshots of Slack messages suggesting an off-the-books dynamic between Kristen and Andy. It wasn't just a leak, the journalist wrote, it was a blueprint for destruction.
His wife has now deactivated her account. The wife later dropped her married name on her Facebook account to the delight of Mrs. SpaceX, who wrote, "What a class act. Go Megan, get that divorce lawyer and get the money."
And inside Astronomer, the silence grew louder. Executives stopped using company chat. HR froze all pending promotions. And through it all, Alyssa never made a single public comment. No Instagram post, no Reddit AMA, nothing. But the impact of her silence, deafening. In the weeks following the Coldplay Kiss Cam scandal, while Kristen retreated into silence and Andy disappeared from tech's inner circle, one figure remained calmly, quietly at the center of it all. Alyssa Stoddard, but not in the way you'd expect. No press conference, no LinkedIn, I told you so, not even a tweet. Her silence wasn't accidental. It was strategic, and insiders now say it was that silence that made people start listening. Alyssa didn't just expose an inappropriate workplace relationship, she dismantled a hierarchy that had shielded it for years. Without a single outburst, without filing a lawsuit, without even breaking protocol, she flipped the power structure at one of the fastest-growing AI companies in Silicon Valley. And what did she get in return? A promotion, a new title, and something even rarer in corporate America: credibility. According to company sources, Alyssa was named Interim Director of People and Culture, the very position Kristen once held, but with full backing from the board. She now oversees audits into executive promotions, discretionary travel budgets, and employee equity distributions. One senior staffer put it bluntly: the woman we all used to overlook is now overseeing us. But perhaps the most shocking twist isn't that Alyssa won, it's how. She never raised her voice. She never accused. She just observed, documented, and acted. While others relied on access, proximity, and performance theater, Alyssa relied on truth. And when her moment came, under stadium lights, next to a kiss cam, at the perfect angle, she didn't scream. She smiled. Industry insiders are already calling her the quiet disruptor, a case study in ethical revenge and professional resilience. Some think she was petty, others say she was brilliant, but no one's denying the outcome. The company is rebuilding. Trust is being reestablished. And Alyssa, she's not just surviving, she's leading. And she's doing it without a headline, without a press junket, and without breaking a single policy. Her story didn't go viral because she wanted fame. It went viral because she stayed silent long enough for everyone else to mess up loudly. And in the aftermath, while Kristen finalizes her divorce and Andy negotiates an NDA just to keep his severance, Alyssa is rewriting the rules from inside. She didn't just pull the trigger, she rewired the system. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of revenge, the one that doesn't end in noise, but in control. So the next time someone in the office seems too quiet to matter, look again. In the end, what began as a 15-second concert clip turned into a full-scale executive collapse, a corporate mutiny, and the unlikely rise of someone no one saw coming. Alyssa Stoddard didn't scream, didn't plot in the open, didn't even flinch when the world finally caught up. She sat still, she smiled, and she let the system destroy itself, one unethical decision at a time. Kristen Cabot lost everything: her promotion, her marriage, her public image. Andy Byron tried to fight the fallout but learned quickly: you can't outspin a camera that caught you in real time. He was forced out of the company he once built and buried under NDAs, severance negotiations, and the permanent stain of a scandal played on repeat across every platform. But Alyssa, she became the architect of a new era at Astronomer, quietly auditing the same corrupt structure that once buried her. No interviews, no headlines, just action. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who waits for the perfect moment and hits record. He sued the one person who unintentionally turned his downfall into global spectacle. Coldplay's Chris Martin himself. If you thought Alyssa's move was cold, wait until you see how Andy tries to flip the narrative in court. Click here to watch.